Are you prepared to transform your well-being? I'm Sanjay Raja. My mission is to challenge our perspectives on food, fitness, and overall health. I own a successful nutrition and fitness business based in Orlando, Florida. And through this experience, I've learned that there's no one-size-fits-all solution. From creating delicious and healthy recipes, to training elite athletes, and even writing the book, The Food Talk. I've accumulated a wealth of knowledge, but here's the exciting part. There's always more to discover. That's why I'm embarking on a journey to connect with leading experts, unveiling the secrets to a happier, healthier life. Together, let's explore innovative ways to enhance our well-being. This is Recipe for Wellness. Welcome back, everybody, for another episode of our podcast, Recipe for Wellness, based on our TV show. We are in season 3, and this episode will be number 5. Wow, it's getting up there. So I have a special guest today. There's a good backstory on how we met. We always like to talk about it. So I was going through, and it's relevant because my previous guest on episode 4 of our podcast, which I just did, which is going to release next week, he was my divorce attorney who became my most trusted confidant, who got me through hell and back and drugged me across the finish line. But I always tell people about that journey is that it took a village to get me out of hell. And this was one of my tribe right here. Right here. So before I introduce the man, the myth, the legend, I'll tell you the little backstory here, which is Mike here. Him and I met at a speakers camp I believe it was in Seattle. I think it was in Seattle.
No, it was in California.
California. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
San Diego. It was in San Diego.
Yeah, that's right.
And what happened was we didn't know each other. And I was just released my book, but I was going through the nasty divorce at the time. And I just said, I need to get out, get working, do something, take my mind off. I was trying to find my legs. Flew out there, had no idea what to expect. And then I was standing in a corner by myself. And this was meant so that people could mingle and talk to each other. And I was not having it. I didn't want to talk to anybody because I was all wrapped up in my head with all the BS that I've been dealing with. And it was just fresh in my head. I was replaying the events and trying to, I don't know, it was not a good space. So there's this guy who walks over to me and says, "Hey, I'm Mike Schindler. How are you?" And at first, I didn't really want to shake his hand and say anything to him. You know why? Because I was just not in that receiving energy. But I said, you know what? You're here for a reason. Seems like a really nice guy. And it's probably one of the best decisions I ever made. Because what ended up happening was we developed this great friendship that developed into a brotherhood, that developed into being a part of each other's lives during the highs and the lows and sticking through it. I've got 2 best friends in the world that I've known for 40 plus years. Another one in Tampa, and then a couple more, and then I'm really honored and proud to call Mike one of those people in my circle. So it's just a good story in the sense that at your lowest moment, you find people that are vibrating on this great frequency. And he just kind of raised me up a little bit, just in that little bit moment of kindness, and it made the event that much better. And lo and behold, I became a speaker, author, did other stuff we're doing. But him and I have been cheerleaders on each other's journeys. When I was low, he was doing pretty good, and he helped me out. When he's had some challenges, I try to be there as much as I can to raise his vibration up, and we all win together. There's more than enough to go around. So that being said, this is all relevant, by the way, because I'm gonna share some interesting stuff. But this is all relevant. Man, the myth, the legend, Mike Schindler, and he's done so many things in his life. Navy veteran. Thank you for your service. But I can't do his accolades justice, so I'm going to let him speak. And this is the moment where you get to talk about yourself a little bit and say all the cool things you're doing. So you have no shame in your game. So tell the world right now,
Yeah.
who are you? What are you about? And how are you changing the world?
Yeah, tell the world. Well, first of all, I just want to say I love that story, Sanjay,
Mm,
because you allowed yourself to be open to, and you had walls up, right? But you allowed yourself to be open. And I think that's where people oftentimes miss opportunities because they're in a headspace that they're like, nope, I just don't want to deal with anything. And they miss the opportunity. Opportunity knocks and they shun it away. And I think I loved how you shared that story where you didn't want to do it, yet you did it. And that was like a
yeah.
plus one moment, right? And
Oh
it
yeah.
truly changed both our lives by you
It
doing
did.
it. So
It did.
yeah, yeah. Well, a little bit about me. I mean, yeah, you're right. Third generation U.S. Navy veteran, did some cool stuff in the Navy, three-time author, a major film documentary under my belt with two other smaller documentaries under my belt. Been working with our military elite on the
Hmm.
coaching business for the last 15 years and with top CEOs on just helping them gain mission, purpose, identity after they go through some transition period in their life. And I've been honored. I mean, truly just a blessed life. And I got to tell you, I think, and I shared this story, years ago when I was on a Boston radio station. It was a live interview, and we had just launched this new program, and the host of the program asked me this question, like, what are you doing right now? And I said, we launched this new program. We require, $50 for people to get into it. When they graduate, we give $40 back, and this person kind of spun that conversation and said, "What? It sounds like you want to make money on the backs of veterans." And here I've been dedicating my life to my brothers and sisters, right? And my dad taught me he taught me this technique. Just if somebody challenges you, to just pause, right? And not get defensive, but be curious instead. And so I kind of paused in that moment before I responded. And before I could respond, the host says, "Well, how much money do you want to make?" And Sanjay, I'll be honest with you, 15 years ago, I hadn't really even thought about it. And I responded just out of the blue, 100 million people.
Hmm.
And the host is like, 100 million people, you want to make 100 million dollars? And I said, yeah, $100 million. He's like, $100 million. And I said, yeah, a dollar for every life we impact.
Hmm.
And that's really been my mission today is when you say how many lives do we want to impact? And I think that's why you and I are kind of equal souls on this adventure called life, right? Because that's what we want to do. We want to improve people's wellness. We want to improve people's health. We want to improve their relationships, and we'll do it. I probably won't touch 100 million people individually, but through our networks, I believe the collective of people, of leaders that we attract to each of our organizations will get there. So,
Yeah, I mean it's crazy 2026 where we started when we met in 2018, I believe.
yeah.
Um, I was just finished my book and launched it. I had no idea about speaking. I hadn't done it. You and I shared stage and learned the basics of it, and we walked away with a really amazing lifelong friendship. And then just been watching each other's kids grow, watching each other grow, go through the ups and downs, the
Mhm.
challenges. Here's another story I like to share because it's directly related to all the good work you've been doing and some of the work that's truly changed my life. So it was, I believe, 2023, and we had an idea for a TV show back in 2018, me and my director Michael, which you've met, and nothing was going on. I mean, absolutely nothing was happening. But it's one of those things where one of my few gifts in life is that I just don't give up on things.
Yeah.
I just don't. I can't
That's
let it
right.
go.
That's right.
I just
Yep.
can't let it go. So, um, we hit brick walls everywhere. People are saying this is not a good idea. We went to different networks, went through all our Rolodex, and nobody was finding the idea worth their time. So Michael and I said we're going to keep this idea on the back burner. Let's work on some other stuff and see what comes about it. So I was in a bad place in my life. Divorce kind of took me down in a lot of ways financially, which was not a great spot. And we were living in a rundown, shitty little apartment in 2023 because save money, build everything up. and I only needed as much space as I required, which was a 3-bedroom apartment. I'd get the kids every other week, and they'd be gone, so it's just me. So I didn't need much. And I was sitting there, and I remember sitting on this couch going, I got to get a game plan. I got to get my mind right, get my mindset right. I just didn't have any tools to figure out where to start. So then you and I started talking, and then you started talking about this thing called VUCA.
Hmm.
And for those who don't know, VUCA is, you hear the term leadership development programs. It's a lot more than that. It's about a blueprint for life in so many different ways. And so VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, chaos, and ambiguity. Um, and what happened is you were mentioning this program you were doing, you were teaching it, you were coaching it, and I got a little intrigued, a little curious. And you said, maybe you should be a part of it. Maybe you should give you a little bit of direction. And I remember you were coaching, it was like $5,000 at the time to be certified in this thing. And I said, I don't have that right now. I just don't have it.
Hmm.
And you said, you know what? I got you. And one of the greatest gifts anybody's ever given me. I can't thank you enough for that. And then for the next 10 weeks, I sat on these calls and we did a Zoom session. And it was a small group of us. I felt like we were like the starter group. We were like the test and see how this would resonate. And became friends with everybody in the group. And one piece at a time, we were learning these little strategies. And what stood out to me with VUCA training was one quote that I still live by today, which is, don't question decisions in the dark that you made in the light.
Yeah,
So,
do not doubt in the dark what you know to be true in the light. That's right.
which
Yeah.
means we make choices that we know to be of our highest potential. And then when the dark times hit, don't second guess them. It's just an opportunity for you to develop new skill set, a new mindset, a new way of thinking so that you can overcome these objections.
Hmm.
Now, I don't believe in coincidence. I've seen too many synchronicities in my life. And what I realized was, fast forward now, after the course was over, I had a mindset, I had a game plan. And then 2020, end of 2023, I swear to God, 2023, we did this course. End of 2023, LinkedIn, I met my executive producer. She's like, I love what you're doing. You should have a bigger audience.
Hmm.
Her and I sat down, we synergized. And you know what? End of 2023, production company was formed. 2024, we started filming. We are now 2026, season 3 of the show, about to hit streaming. Podcast in the third season. Everybody's resonating with it. We're getting offers to get our content on different platforms. Speaking career is going well. Acting career is going well. I just, I look back and I go, how did it happen? I mean, how did it
Hmm.
happen? Right. And so share with the audience because this is
Yeah.
not about me. This is about the journey that I was taken on by your good grace and then allowing me to join you about that mindset shift and how it changes people if you really take in the lessons. Like I'm a coach with VUCA through you,
Yeah.
but I want the audience to hear from my mentor, which is you and VUCA. If you had to break it down to 3
Yeah.
little things that VUCA teaches you, what would it be that the audience could take away right now?
Yeah. First of all, the first is if you have ever felt stressed or overwhelmed, that's not unusual. That's actually a mental signal that you're probably out of alignment. And that's the first, right? It really is an awareness, is understanding that if my life is chaotic or if I'm stressed out or if the job is not working well or if I'm having issues, you first have to you have to be aware of it, right? You have to name it. And that's why we said VUCA. I mean, it's based off the film we did, right? Volatility, uncertainty, chaos. I love that you inserted chaos. It's really complexity, but there's a lot of complexity and chaos,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
ambiguity.
Yeah.
Um, but the first is awareness, and then the next phase is acknowledging where you're at, right? And I think that's what most people miss is because we live in a society of shame, guilt, despair, you know, lack, we don't want to acknowledge that we might be stressed out, right? That or we are feeling overwhelmed. And I think that's one of the greatest gifts that you gave yourself too, Sanjay, was the fact that you said, "Man, I got to have a game plan." Right? I'm sitting on my couch. I got to have a game plan. I got to do
Mm.
something different. A lot of people don't do that. They just sit on the couch and hope tomorrow's different. And you acknowledged it and then you put action behind it. And I really think it's those three, that is the gateway to making change in life is the first is an awareness. Am I feeling stuck? Am I
Mm-hmm.
feeling stuck? Am I uncertain? Do I not have a game? Am I feeling overwhelmed? You got to be aware. The next is yes, all of that is true. And the third is what am I going to do about it? And that's where we've made it kind of that's the gateway. And if people can understand that and they can take the next step, they can put action behind it and they can get a mentor, they can find the help that they need, whatever issue they're dealing with. That is where transformation begins. And it takes work. I tell people, listen, if you are hoping for the easy button, I mean, those 10 weeks that you went through is kind of like boot camp, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
you got to be willing to change. And if you're not willing to change, you just expect that tomorrow's going to be the same as today. And I got to tell you, 40 years of that seems miserable to me. So
Well, it's we've talked about this. I tell my kids this. Hope is not a strategy, right? I mean,
it's a starting point. That's
right.
it. That's it.
No, you
Yeah,
got to have hope to see the vision. You got to have hope to say that anything can change,
that's
right?
right.
But it's not a strategy. The strategy is taking action. And I think that's
That's
where
right.
so many people get stuck.
Yeah.
And why this is so relevant to our show in Recipe for Wellness is that I learned so many epiphanies doing this show. Season one, I became more aware of my mental health. I was
Yeah.
neglecting it. It takes a lot out of you to do our show. Season
Yeah.
two, I put processes in place to address it, meaning don't just go, I'm going to tough it through. Just don't be doing that. Take time for yourself. Think about your process and what can you do to change your processes.
That's right.
I think the biggest thing for me with anything I do now is I go back to VUCA and I say, I can either resist change or I can lean into it.
That's it. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's where most people get stuck is that everybody's so resistant to change. But what's the only constant in this universe? It's change. That's it.
Change. Yeah.
Yeah. We just
Yeah.
know that tomorrow is not going to be the same as today, 10 minutes from now, 10 years from now. We know something's going to change.
Well, I
So,
think what you're describing, Sanjay, is that anti-fragile resilience, right? We've learned for the last decade, hey, you got to be more resilient. You got to, and resiliency is good, but in the environment that we live in, you got to be anti-fragile, right? And the anti-fragile is the piece that, and I think you described it even better than I described it almost, is I've always described it as a tennis ball that when you bounce it, it's got to bounce forward to where you are going as opposed to bouncing back to where you were, right? If it bounces back to where you were, that's being resilient, but you're no longer there, right? Because the world's
mhm,
moving so fast. And I think that's the important part for people. And I think it's important that we describe that well, there's the negative side, or what I call the human 1.0 side of VUCA, the
mhm,
volatility, the uncertainty, the complexity, the ambiguity. Where we want to elevate to is the human 10.0 side, and that's leaning into your vision, gaining understanding as you go through these chaotic moments, right? Getting clarity, right? Instead of dealing with the chaos and complexity, you're gaining clarity through those situations because now you kind of understand who you are, where you're going. And to your point, you've got to be adaptable. That's the positive side, right? Vision,
mhm,
understanding, clarity, adaptability. When you operate in that sphere, that is human 10.0. That's where extreme athletes operate. That's where extreme elite military members operate. That's where your top CEOs operate. Is
mhm.
it's not because they're not getting hit in the face. They're probably getting hit in the face two, three times, 10 times more than the average person. But they've channeled a mindset that says, game on, this is where I'm at. I know how to do this. They're like the Matrix, right? I mean, they know how to navigate it.
Well, it's so interesting as I saw. some clips of some podcasts, and they had Ben Affleck and Matt Damon promoting their new movie on Joe Rogan's podcast. And Ben Affleck went off on a little tangent. He said, I sat down with some Delta Force guys. And I said, what makes you guys so special? You guys are the lead of the lead, top tier guys. And they said, and they're just average looking guys you would never
Yeah.
know. And they said one sentence, they said, we just, we're problem solvers. That's what we do.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how he said it. And then I was kind of scrolling through some stuff, and you know how you get stuck in the internet rabbit hole.
Yep.
And then what happened is I fell down the rabbit hole. I ran into interviews with Delta Force guys, and they go, yeah, we're just problem solvers. That's what we do.
Yeah.
And that is such a good way to look at things. And that is, you're going to be faced with so many problems on a day-to-day basis, right?
Yeah.
And I tell people, you know, because a lot of people ask, is say, you know, so if, when you're not watching, when you're not putting on the show or not traveling around for the show, what do you do? I say, I solve problems. I put out fires all day. That's what I do.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
exactly right. I solve problems and put out fires all day. And we think about that, and that is, it's not just professional, it's personal,
Correct.
right?
100%. Yeah. Yeah,
So,
there's a great technique for that, right? I mean, my friend who served 25 years on the SEAL teams, when he got out, he said, Mike, you know, when I put that on my resume, people would either think two things. Number one, I can do anything, which is not true. I can do a lot of things, but not everything. Or number two, I'm just really good at killing bad people. And he said, you know, how do I change that? And to your point and to what the Delta Force guys said is so spot on. I said, when you get interviewed, your response to that is, I'm the guy they drop into difficult situations to solve problems, right?
mm,
And he started using that. And today he has developed, oh my gosh, a multi-million dollar coffee company. And
yeah.
you know, it's crazy to see that when you shift your mindset to understand that life is really about problem solving, right? It truly, truly is about problem solving. I think they're spot on with that. Yeah, 100%.
Well, you know, it's amazing because, you know, I've talked to a lot of people. It just, with this show, has opened so many doors about getting into other people's lives, and, you know, people I would never meet otherwise. And it's awesome. And you think about it, and I think on every episode of the show, just about for season two, I think I mentioned one phrase that has guided me, which I believe is a VUCA principle, but I just reframed it in a different way for myself, which is, life happens for you, not to you, right? So it's that mental shift of, am I the hero or the victim of my story? Which story am I going to write? Which story are people going to want to watch? Which story people are going to want to listen to, right?
Yeah.
You know, and it's not about them; it's about us and how we see the world. But just that little mindset, I mention that to my kids like all the time, and they just kind of blow it off right now, which is okay.
Yeah.
But I tell them, I said, that little shift has changed the game for us in every aspect of my life. And I hope it does for you too. So I'm just going to keep reminding you. You know, I think a lot of us do carry tools of VUCA in our tool bag, but
Yeah.
we just don't have a name for it. I remember coming away from it going, I do a lot of these principles. I just didn't have a name for it.
Yeah.
Right. You know,
Yeah.
so what do we tell ourselves when somebody says, oh, you can't do this? So, like, oh, okay. Limiting belief. That's a VUCA tool right there. You
That's
know,
it.
spelling
Yeah.
limiting beliefs. So when you talk, and you've given this training to big companies, USAA, I mean, just big monster companies. Do you do you find that people are resistant to it, or people see an immediate way to apply to both their professional and personal life?
Yeah, it's a great question. No, you know, it's interesting because, you know, when we first developed that film, you know, it was in 2020, that was coming out of, you know, the pandemic. It was right in the middle of the pandemic. And I thought there was going to be a shelf life on this. And what I realized is that, you know, that was just the kickoff to so many other complex and chaotic moments. Uh, and so our business expanded, and when we go into organizations or when I work with leaders, you know, visionary leaders or veterans, I find that they are not resistant to it because we attract the ones that want to better themselves or their organizations or their teams. So when we
Yeah.
go in, what we're doing is we're giving them a common language. Because to your point, some people have these tools already. They've just never named it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what happens where the military is great is we have a nomenclature, we have a language of our own, right? So we understand each other. And so
Yeah.
what happens when you get into culture is you're bringing all these amazing talents together, but oftentimes they have not established a common language. And so they're all operating in a different dialect, so to speak. And what we do is we break down that dialect and say, no, 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 we're going to get you guys so that you bring you guys together and help you understand each other. And that's what VUCA does. So when we go into organizations, companies, that's exactly what we're doing is we're giving them a common language and then we're giving them a tool set from which they can operate that helps them elevate to the next level, right? And that's yeah, Sanjay, I got to tell you, I have met with some amazing leaders, like
Mm-hmm.
people who are on the front lines of some of the things that we do in this world and certainly in our country. And I'll ask certain questions like, okay, if we stripped all your responsibilities away, what does it mean to be you?
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes there's a long pause. And they're like, I guess I've never really sat with that.
Yep.
And right. And I think if we were to ask our neighbors or even family members, what does it mean to be you? And oftentimes they'll give us their job description. And I'm like, that's not what I asked, right? Because what I'm really trying to get to is the root of who they are, which is their operating system. And the
Yeah.
challenge in the leadership and development industry, which I'm very much a big part of, is, that's a $366 billion industry. It's huge, it's massive. But what we fail to understand is about only 25% of those programs are effective. That means
Mm-hmm.
75% of the programs are not effective. Well, why are they not effective? It's because we're not dealing with the root cause, which is the operating system. And how I like to describe that is think about your computer. If you are operating on an old operating system and you download a new program, it's probably going to operate very slowly or it's not going to operate at all.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happens in the leadership and development industry is we pull people in, we sit them in a classroom, and then we say, okay, here's my program. And we don't personalize it, right? Because
Yeah.
everybody's coming in at a different level. And that's where we made VUCA different. Is because said VUCA is a macro concept, but we make it very micro. And I think hopefully, well, I think I can say yes, you had that experience when you worked with us, is
Mm-hmm.
we hone it into the individual because you are operating at a different operating system. And when we kicked that off, I think we had 14 people from around the world in that program. It was
Yeah.
pretty small, right?
Yeah.
Um, but every person, I'd sit with them once a week after the group sessions, and I'd sit with them once a week and I'd figure out what their operating system was and how we could unpack that so that we could layer what you needed in order to elevate. And I will tell you that of the 14, we get success stories still from that original crew. It's pretty amazing.
Well, I think the hardest thing for me was when we were doing the worksheets where I just was racking my brain because there was a question on the worksheet, which was, okay, why are you here? Okay, you answer that question. Now be more specific. Now be more specific. Now be more specific. I was getting so effing annoyed with that, honestly. I was like, really? But
Yeah.
it was working for my highest good because once I got down to being so specific about what's my intention, what am I trying to accomplish, it creates this level of self-awareness, right?
Yeah.
Now, once I knew it, I said, wow, okay, now I've got a direction of where I need to go. I knew I wanted a show. Okay, great. But what was that going to be about? Everybody wants, notoriety, but I wasn't looking for fame. I wasn't looking to be the next biggest star. What I was looking to do was to change the world for the better through my lens of health and wellness. And
Yeah.
then once we got so specific in my intention, now I had a roadmap. And once you have the roadmap, now you put in the work. Once you put in the work, you'll get there. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what happened. And that's the problem I see that is not having direction and having any self-awareness as to what you're doing, why you're doing what you're doing, how is it going to impact people's life? Is it for you? It's for your family. Who is it for? just asking all these questions, and nobody challenges us to ask these questions. So that's the
Yeah.
reason why I love that tool. And, if I ever lose my way, I'll just go back to it and say, this is why you're doing it.
Yeah. And I think that's the effective part too, is our motivation has always been to equip people, right?
Hmm.
And I think you've heard me talk about the PPEs, right? I would joke after COVID coming out because everybody was talking about
Oh,
PPEs, right?
yeah.
Personal protective equipment. And I flipped that and I gave it a new meaning behind the acronym, which was, prepare, plan, execute. And
Yeah.
that whole prepare, plan, execute is oftentimes people spend their lives preparing, right? Or they spend their
Hmm.
lives planning, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to prepare. This is my vision. And I got to go back because it's not perfect. And then, they prepare and then they plan. Okay, I'm going to plan. I'm going to plan on when I'm going to do it. And nope, it's not the right time. And they leave off the E, right? And they forget to execute. So I joke with people and I say, all you're doing is just pee-peeing. I mean, you got to stop doing that. What you got to do is you got to execute even when it's not perfect. And what you do is you begin to refine the edges as you go along. And you did that with the show. Like you went, okay, we're going for it. We're going season one. And you learned so much through that. And then you did iterations on season two. And now season three is going to be even better because you did more iterations and you learned and you grew. And that's what we did with this leadership, this human 10.0 leadership collective. I just said, we've got a lot of perfect stuff, and I don't know everything that I'm doing, but we're just going to launch it. And that's what we did. And every week I make iterations and I tell people, listen, this is not going to be perfect, but guess what? Life is not perfect. You know, you try something and you make adjustments. We would oftentimes say, adjust fire, right? Because it
Hmm.
wasn't accurate. So you just have to do that. You just have to, adapt and modify. So
Well, I think the toughest thing for a lot of people is action, right?
yeah,
It's just failing, and that's the biggest teacher. You hear it a million times. You should learn how to fail. You should fail often. You should fail forward. Yeah, it's true. All these things are true, and you hear a million people say it, but it's so personal to the person and their experience as to what is
yeah,
happening. I
yeah,
could talk to somebody till I'm blue in the face about my experiences in failing and failing forward and failing backwards, but they have to go through it. You have to go through it, right? And I look back now at there used to be a time where I couldn't even talk about the divorce that I went through. I couldn't even
hmm
talk about it.
yeah,
It would put me in a bad state, but now I talk about it openly. I talk about it freely. I talk about it, how it shaped me. Um, and, without it happening, I don't know if I'd be here now.
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah,
So I don't
yeah,
second guess it anymore. I don't look back and I think that's the other thing VUCA taught me, which was don't feel shame for the past mistakes because that's going to hold
yeah,
you back, right?
yeah,
You got to look forward because whatever's happened, but it's happened for a reason to you,
yeah,
good, bad, or indifferent, you know? And so I look back and I say, okay, it was an experience, one of many I've had. Would I have chosen that? Probably not, but it was chosen for me for a reason, right?
yeah. Yeah, you're talking old story, new story, right? And I
Yeah.
think so many people get caught up in their old story. Yeah, I mean, we all know that, the friend that keeps talking about his high school days when he was the quarterback and, back in the day and right.
Yeah.
And it's fine. That's an accomplishment that was 40 years ago or 30 years ago or 20 years ago, whatever it was. That's the old story. And I think what we have to, in order to break through into that new story, we've got to shock the system. We
Mhm.
really do. And, you and I used to joke, uh, it- and, here's a personal confession, you would give me a hard time because I loved Oreos and I loved Cheetos, right? And you would call me Cheeto or Mr. Oreo. And,
Yeah.
and I gave that up. I mean, I'm reformed. I no longer eat those. It's so amazing. But my old story was, well, yeah, but it doesn't really matter. And you got to shock the system. And one of the best ways to do that, this is one of the tools that we encourage people to do, is and I'll give this out because I think it's so important that people do this, is your old system is that was then,
Hmm.
right? And list the things that was then, right? So list all those things. I used to be the star quarterback. I used to struggle with alcohol. I used to struggle with food. I used to, that was then, right? Whatever those things are, those things that you maybe feel some shame or guilt or things like, that are holding you back, the anchors. And then the new story is this is now. And so what is now? Like,
Yeah.
what is now? Now I'm reshaping my body to be the athlete that I was 20 years ago. The now is I'm eating healthier. The now is I'm leaning into financial opportunities. The now is I shake somebody's hand when I don't want to because that could be an opportunity, right? That's now. And when that's just a neuroscience hack where you flip the script in your brain and you start moving into this is now.
Well, so many people don't know that you were in acting, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's one of my passions that I've been doing. And I remember just looking at these stories of actors, which is like Morgan Freeman, Samuel L. Jackson, and these are household names. And guess
Yeah.
what? They didn't hit it until one was in his 50s, one was in his late 40s. We're talking about a profession that's got an 80 to 90% unemployment rate.
Yeah. That's right.
Okay. So I was on this path. I remember I got into acting 2014. 2015, I hit it hard out of the gate. I got House of Cards, landed some big roles, which accelerated my career. 2017, quit corporate America, became a full-time actor, was crushing it, was going to LA, New York, Atlanta, everywhere. And then 2018, I got hit with a divorce. And guess what happened? I had to shut it all down, shut
Yeah.
it all down. And I didn't know who I was anymore because that's how I define myself. I'm an actor.
Yeah.
This is what I do. And my most important job as being now a single dad in 2018 was just that: be a single dad, raise these kids, be present for them. They're watching you.
Yeah.
You got to
That's right.
show them, you
Such a
got to
great
show
point.
them, yeah, you got to show them that this is what's going to happen in life. It can happen this way, but how are you going to rise above it? How are you going to overcome this? Because they're watching me all the time.
Yeah.
And so I put all those dreams aside. I said, I'm going to build a life that's centered around the fact that I'm always going to be present and here. I don't have anybody, a spouse or anybody to back me up. I had no family in Florida. It's just me. So that being said, I started focusing on the nutrition fitness company. I started focusing on doing podcasts and just getting on shows and started taking stages for free. And then that grew, that grew, that grew. And now we're fast forward to 2026 where we're here. I just finished a feature, got cast for another one. It's just
Mm,
timing is everything in life. And I look back and
love
I
it.
said, all those experiences that I had to take time off from acting, guess what? Made me a better actor too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because,
But you're describing, people are starting to see your success and they're like, gosh, that just seems like it happened overnight. And you're like, oh,
mm,
you don't remember the nights that I was crying or the nights that I was like
mm,
pulling my hair out or taking long walks and going, oh my gosh, is this ever, am I stuck in this cycle, right? You,
oh,
you, you
yeah,
channeled a belief system in yourself, brother. And I think that's important for people to acknowledge, number one, but also to understand that they can have that as well. Like that's ingrained in us.
yeah.
Like I believe it is. It's just that we listen to the external track instead of that internal track that says, no, 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 your vision's here. And that's where I think alignment's so important is people feel crushed by society because one of the reasons, I don't want to say it's the only reason, but oftentimes it's because they're out of alignment. And
Yeah.
that's what I love what you're doing is you're getting people to align with true self with food, right? And mental awareness and mental health. And I think that's so important today. It's so needed. It's so needed.
Well, I talk about it on camera a lot, and the part of the journey for me being on the show and doing the podcast is that I am trying to reveal more of my life to everybody to say, listen, no matter what place you are in your life right now, I was probably at that stage at a certain point in my life.
Yeah.
And just
Yeah.
having two things work for me. Having a delusional outlook about where I'm going to be. It's only delusional until it happens, by the way, right?
Right.
Right.
It's so
Having a
true.
delusional outlook about where I'm going to be and what I need to do, and believing that even though there's no anecdotal evidence to support it at the time, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm in the empirical evidence game. There's evidence to support it, so let's just keep pushing it. Let's just keep pushing it. Let's just keep going. And the other skill I've always had as a kid, which kind of labeled me as a black sheep and caused rifts in family and stuff, is that I never cared about what anybody said about me, ever.
Mm.
I never
Mm.
did.
Yeah.
And I thought at the time there was something wrong with me. I really did. And when I was younger, because I was being told, what is wrong with you? Why can't you conform?
Yeah.
What's,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
these are your loved ones, people who supposedly care about you, who are trying to put you into this box
Yeah.
because it may be through their own insecurity, it may be through a lot of different things. But I've always had that belief. My kids will always say, like, you really don't care what other people think. I'm like, nope, I just don't.
It's well, and that serves people well. Like when the vision is big, the circumstances don't matter. And the circumstances could be external circumstances, like, people are saying X about you. But if you're so locked into your vision, it doesn't matter. And
Yeah.
and and you channel that, and I think you're a great example for that, Sanjay. I mean, the journey that we've been on, and to your point, you've helped me through some dark moments, right? That I've had too, on a personal level. And you need to build a tribe. And when we look at studies and we talk about men, because we're two men here on this podcast today, is most men have fewer than two close male friends,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And it's so sad. So a lot of men are living in isolation. And I encourage, the men who are listening to this, and certainly the wives or the girlfriends, to encourage their men to find their tribe. And it could be, I've got a tribe of five, and you're included in that, right?
Mhm.
So I've got a tribe of five that I can it's I don't want to say confess, but I can. It's a vulnerable tribe where we can all come to each other and say, "Hey, listen, there's no shame, there's no guilt, there's
Mhm.
no condensation or condensation. Well, you have condensation there in Florida right now because you're so cold, and I'm 76 degrees here in Arizona. But there's no
Yeah.
condemnation, right? So
Yeah.
you got to find that tribe, and so I'm going to encourage all your listeners is have your tribe of people, because it's going to be important that as society changes and we're evolving so fast and it's overwhelming to so many people, is have your tribe where you don't get together and just bitch and complain. You do
Mhm.
what the Delta Force and the Navy SEALs do, is you get together and you problem solve. And I think that's going to be so important for your listeners to honestly
Well,
execute upon.
what's interesting is that there was a study shown, I forgot the percentage, but it's saying the percentage of people in this world who have just one best friend is less than like 20%. And the
Mm,
odds of having somebody with two best friends here it goes down to single digits,
wow.
which is some crazy. I could be wrong, but I know it's really low percentages. So somebody
Yeah.
can fact check me on that.
Yeah.
But that being said, I think the other part that I got out of our relationship that I still do is that it's okay to really ask for help when you need it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I,
100%.
I, yeah, I came to you in some low moments and said, "Hey, man, I just need some help. I don't know who to turn to." And you were there. It was
Yeah.
fantastic, and forever grateful for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everybody goes through that in life, and especially with this uncertain times right now, economy, the world, something's always being thrown at us, and that is, find that friend, find that confidant, and just reach out.
Yeah. 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 100%. 100%. I encourage that. I mean, you got to have your tribe. We call it in the military your battle buddy, right? Find your battle buddies. And you need to have your battle buddies. I mean, you really do. Because life has a lot of little landmines laying around, and somebody might have figured out how to avoid some of them. And
Yeah.
while you feel like you need to have your own little landmine experience, I would encourage, people, I get it, but if you can learn from somebody who's already crossed the field
Mhm.
in it, follow in their footsteps. And you got to set aside ego to do that. And I just encourage people, listen, set the vision so big, set your moonshot so big that you set aside ego and you go, you know what? My goal is the moonshot, not the accolades. And when you do that, you'll change lives, including your own.
Well, I think that's the other part of it too, which is the thing I learned from working with you is if my vision isn't so audaciously big and scary, then it's not big enough,
Yeah.
honestly, right? Which is you set this goal to be so audacious and crazy. And we had no inkling in 2018 we had anything. We were getting turned down left and right for a show and all this stuff, and nothing went on for 6 years, man. I mean,
Yeah.
nothing. And then all of a sudden, this happened, this happened, this happened. Boom, 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 boom. Now the train's
Mhm.
gone and it's not stopping anytime soon,
Yeah, I
right?
love it. I still love it.
So, but that's the thing, and that is if your goal is not that big, guess what? All these other things along the way, which you thought were impossible, can't be accomplished either. And they just all
That's right.
started happening,
That's
right?
that's right. That's right.
So, just difficult things in life in general usually have the highest reward. And I'm not even talking monetarily. I'm talking you as a human being.
Correct. 100%. And I think it's even better if it's internal. The external money can come and go, but if you problem solve the internal, the external, will come and go, but you will be able to navigate life as like a Zen master. I'm telling you, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. And we could talk about vibrations and things like that, but I tell people, whether you believe in that or not doesn't matter to me. It's really whether or not you believe in yourself. And if you understand you
Yeah.
believe in yourself, then no matter what happens, you go, you know what? No matter what it is, I can get through it. And a technique that we teach is that pause, what a pleasure, right? It's, when things hit you in the face and you want to react, we just say the word pause out loud. Just say pause. It
Well,
changes you. Yeah.
the other thing that changed me was in January of last year, I took a trip to the Himalayas with my kids in northern
Mhm.
India.
Yeah.
Never been. And we got the backstage pass through our tour guide to sit and chant with Buddhist monks for about 2.5 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, and nobody really gets to do it. And then we just sat there and listened to them with this deep throaty resonance frequency. It was like cleaning us out mentally and physically. And I learned from them just to understand breathing, that adding
Yeah.
that tool to my toolkit as well, which is when you're present, you're breathing.
That's
When
right.
you're not present, you feel depression, you may be holding your breath. When you're feeling anxious over things you can't control that haven't even transpired yet, guess what? You're holding your breath. You're not being present.
Right.
Just taking a breath and breathing brings you back to center, be present. And then that comes to, what I learned from, I think you and I talked about it, but I've dealt with it with my context, which is how are Navy SEALs and these tier one operators so calm under fire? Box breathing. They're
That's
being
it.
present,
That's
right?
it. Yeah. Yeah.
And we talk,
100%.
and Buka talks about that, how he shuts down like the sympathetic nervous system by just getting deep breaths in there. So your fight or flight response is shut down. And
Yeah.
now you can make rational decisions.
That's right. Yeah, you move from the
Right.
sympathetic into the parasympathetic. And box breathing is
Yeah.
pretty easy. It's a 5 by 5 by 5, right? I mean, it's or
Yeah.
some teach 4 by 4 by 4.
Mhm.
So it's so effective, and I truly believe that we are equipped on this planet with everything that we need. And what I love about what you're doing is you're teaching people the value and the importance of real food,
Mhm.
right? Like whole food. Like I've been so like when I started this, this, I'm going to say it, regaining my athletic build. That's what I'm going to say is,
Yeah.
um, I started looking at packages and I'm like, I don't even know what half the stuff is on this label.
Exactly.
I
There
should
you
not
go.
eat that, right? I don't know how that's going to impact. And all of a sudden, when you start eating healthy again, you're like, your mind becomes clear, right? I mean, it's such a different world. Um,
Well,
And
I
I
tell
just,
everybody, once you start doing that, you can't go back.
it's true. No, you
Can't go
can't
back.
because you know that you're cheating. And you're like, I'm actually kind of poisoning my body right now if I do
Yeah.
this. So
Yeah.
that's I will curse you for that and thank you for that at the same time, you know? Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
you and I could talk about life, VUCA, the whole 9 yards, probably for another 10 hours.
Oh,
But
totally. Yeah.
that being said, we do want to give you some time. This is our shameless plug segment, which is shamelessly plug your accolades, where people can find you, what you're
Yeah.
doing, your website. So then that way people can connect with you because I personally have been changed just by our friendship and by what you have taught me as a mentor in VUCA. And the other thing is life lessons in general.
Yeah.
Um, so I think a lot of people could gain some valuable insight because when we talk about health and wellness, it's everything. It's mental, physical, financial,
Yeah.
it's career. I mean, all these things affect our life. So share with our audience what you're up to right now, where people could find you, where they can connect with you, and some of the other cool stuff you got coming down the road.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the best place is just to go to michaelschindler.com. So that's Michael, Schindler, Schindler.com. And we have a free community there for leaders. We essentially evaluate anybody that wants to join the community, see what value they're going to add, and then we either say you're probably not right for the community or welcome into the community and add value to it. And that's free. That's free for people to join there. And it really is a leadership collective. It's where we are teaching people how to move from human 1.0 to human 10.0. And I just encourage your listeners to check it out. They might find some value
Mhm.
there. People that really want to go deep into the VUCA matter, they can do that. It's VUCAmax.com is one of our other websites. But if they want to connect with me personally, go to LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn.
Mm.
I'm very active on LinkedIn. Um,
Yep.
I oftentimes tell people you can text me, and I've been doing this for 15 years, and it's so crazy. I give my phone number out, and people are like, "You give your phone number out," and it's so interesting. I love working with the ones who actually text because
Yeah.
they believe
Yeah.
in themselves at that point. And so I'll give people my phone number. It's 206-795-5890. And I encourage you to text and just say, hey, I was listening to Sanjay's podcast and I
Yeah.
want to connect. And just give me a heads up. Otherwise, I will block you because it could be spam, but just you got to give me a reference there. Um, but that's the best way to reach me. And I really am curious about people's stories. And if we can help you, we will. And if we can't
Mhm.
help you, we'll point you in the right direction. And that's really how we operate here. And it's something that I've lived by for the last 2 decades, to be honest with you. And it's benefited my lifestyle for sure, both personally and professionally.
What's coming down the road for you? What's your next appearance? What's your next big project that we can all look forward to?
Gosh, I just rolled off the military influencer. That was like the
Mhm.
Grammys for people who influence in the
Yeah.
military community. I just got that award. Um,
Nice.
the next big thing for me, honestly, is growing this leadership collective to 1,000 people. That's my big effort.
Mhm.
And my goal is to do that before June. In June, we spend 10 days in Zanzibar and Kilimanjaro area to give back to community there. So we'll be working some of the clinics and working with the schools and some of those who are less fortunate. And very excited about that trip. I'm Tanzania. I've never been, and I'm excited to
Nice.
go, and it's going to be
Exciting.
amazing. And but all through that period, my goal is, and Sanjay, the biggest thing for me, and I'll share this with your audience, and we can close here, but in Q1 of 2025, I was operating with 82 different clients. It was crazy. It was off the charts. My
Mhm.
brain was fried. And so what I've now decided to do is that's why I opened up this leadership collective is I will work with people in the collective for free. But if they want to go deep, I've dialed that way back to I only work with 5 clients a month now. And
Mm.
it's changed my mental state. It's changed what I give back to people. And I just encourage your people to reach out if they're looking to go to the next level and achieve the things that you've achieved through our help. I mean, to be honest with you. You're one of
Well,
my shameless plugs. So
well, you know what though? The term self-made person is highly overrated because
that's right.
it took a group of people who believed in me to
Yeah.
really get to this point.
Yeah.
Nobody truly gets there on
That's right.
on our own. You know what I mean? So I'm just so grateful for just all the people that believed in us, believed in me, and really want to see us do really well. You know,
Yeah.
so. But the other thing I would say though is, you know, you've done a lot of work with the veteran community, and one of the things I will share with the audience before we sign off is that um, I got a new respect for what veterans really go through once I started talking to you. And I think one of the best experiences in my life was when you secured a visit to a military base and we took a tour. And I think what blew me away, and I'm just bringing this up because I just want people to be aware of this, is that we saw on the military base a mock kitchen and a
Mhm.
mock living room kind of house situation. And I was looking at this and I said, "What is this?" And you said, "You don't understand. A lot of our veterans who transitioned back to the world just don't know how to deal with daily life." And I was floored when I heard this. And I can't thank you enough for what you do for the veteran community. I know veterans do listen to our program. I'm friends with a lot of people who are ex-military, Navy SEALs, and I know there's a lot going on in the world right now. So just wanted to make sure that the our audience knew just how much work you've done with the veteran community, and that
Wow.
that's really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. It's my honor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here to
So that being
serve.
said, folks, another episode of Recipe Wellness Podcast in the books. And if you want to catch our TV show, we are streaming nationwide on PBS on broadcast TV for season one. Exciting stuff coming up. We're going to be on major streaming channels hopefully this month, which is what we're told, but it could change. Um, Pre-production or post-production for season two, it's going to come out this year in May on PBS, and pre-production for season three. So that train's already rolling. So a lot of great things coming down the road. But thank you again, and Mike Schindler. Appreciate your time, your efforts. I encourage people to reach out to him. And thank you again to our audience for listening in. Until we're back next time.